in the waiting room and letting people in, so you don't have to worry about that part.
Okay. So the topic that I'm going to be presenting on is step-parent and stepchild relationships. The reason why I chose this topic is because I realized I don't know too much about it, so I thought what better way to learn than choosing it for my workshop. What's going on here? What happened? Darn it. Okay, so the objectives for today, I can't see. Okay, so the objectives for today are to identify how having stepchildren affects marital satisfaction in step families, recognize how communication helps step-parent, stepchild relationships, explore the different dynamics of step-parent and stepchild relationships, identify current leaders in the research of step families, apply step-parent and stepchild relationships from a systems perspective, examine multicultural considerations in step-parent and stepchild relationships, reflect on our own biases in order to improve self-awareness of good cross-cultural communication, and examine step-parent and stepchild relationship in a real-world example. So according to DeLongis and Zwicker, remarriages are not as stable as first marriages, as the divorce rate is 10% higher in remarriages and occur more quickly in step families. In most cases, families in different situations are brought together. So this could mean that one parent has been married and has a child, but the other person has never been married or had any children. But there's also different scenarios. So unlike first marriages, remarriages are more likely to include children, which means that the couple has to form while parents are trying to keep a strong and long-standing relationships. And this is different from first marriages because in most cases, first marriages don't have children and they focus on the relationship before they bring children into the picture. And this makes it harder for remarried couples, and could raise the chance of divorce. In first marriages, the most common reason for conflict is money-related issues, whereas in step families, the most common source of conflict is the children. And this is due to the fact that remarried couples disagree about child behavior, the distribution of resources to the child, and co-parenting decisions, which causes greater conflict in step families. And additionally, 50% of stressors reported by remarried couples are related to children and stepchildren. This is according to a study done by the University of British Columbia on step families, which was in 2017. So communication is important in all relationships, but especially when it's a step-parent and stepchild relationship, because children want both integration and distance. It can make it hard for step-parents to communicate with their stepchildren. But when step-parents try to communicate, stepchildren are more likely to try as well. In order to have stronger step-family relationships, there has to be interaction, openness, clear rules and boundaries, and family problem solving, spending time together, and maintaining a positive image of the non-residential parent. So never talking bad about the parent who's not in the home with you and your stepchild. So it is important to have strong families, as functional step families exhibit lower levels of dissension and avoidance and higher levels of involvement, flexibility, and expressiveness. So step-parent and stepchild relationships are so important that it is actually the central aspect to the satisfaction of the whole family. So warm step-parenting behaviors are positively associated with stepchild's role clarity, which in turn is positively associated with connection-seeking behaviors and family satisfaction. This is according to Braithwaite in 2018. So relationships differ from those in intact families and those in step families. So because of this, children tend to view step parents and biological parents differently, depending on the circumstance. And step parents also view their relationships with their stepchildren differently, as 64% of step parents rated their relationships with their children as excellent, and stepfathers achieve better relationships with their stepchildren than do stepmothers. Alternatively, adult stepchildren perceive relationships with their stepmothers less positively than adults from intact families viewed their biological mothers. There is a pattern when it comes to less satisfaction with stepmothers, as stepfather families have somewhat clearer and better defined institutionalized norms, roles, and expectations than do stepmother families. Because it is important for step families to have roles, it is important for clinicians to help members identify and clarify and implement their roles in the step family. They can also help families improve step-parent and stepchild relationships by clarifying what step-parents and stepchildren's expectations regarding to the nature of their relationship is. So now we're going to learn about leaders in the issue. The thing about research on step parenting or step families is that a lot of it is pretty much new and there's not too much about it right now. So first, it's Francesca Adler-Bader. So Adler is a professor at the University or at Auburn University and has a PhD in human development and family studies. Her publications include Implications of Remarriage and Step Family Formation for Marriage Education, and then Does Couple and Relationship Education Work for Individuals and Step Families, a meta-analytic study, The Intergenerational Transmission of Relationship Quality, The Effects of Parental Remarriage Quality on Young Adults' Relationships, Marital Quality for Men and Women in Step Families, examining the role of economic pressure, common stressors and step family specific stressors, an examination of gender role attitude change patterns among continuously married, divorced, and remarried individuals, and much more. She got her Bachelor's of Arts in Communications in the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, her Master's of Science in Human Development and Family Studies at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and her research interests include couple and relationship education for youth and adults, intimate and co-parenting relationships, remarriage and step families, fatherhood and prevention program evaluation, and mindfulness intervention. This is all from the website of Auburn University. So next is Lawrence H. Ganong. So he is a professor of nursing and human development studies at the Sinclair School of Nursing in the University of Missouri Health. He got his PhD at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, in the area of family studies. And he also got his medical degree in the University of Missouri and is a leading authority on remarriage and step family dynamics. He has conducted research on step families for over 3 decades. He's interested in families and the health of family members, so his work includes bibliotherapy with stepchildren, remarried family relationships, changing families, changing responsibilities, family obligations following divorce and remarriage, step family relationships, development, dynamics, and interventions, and much more. He is a respected authority whose research, teachings, and writings focus on post-divorce family dynamics and relationships, intergenerational family obligations, and social conditions pertaining to the family life. He conducts workshops for professionals working with step families, but also for step family members themselves. He has a research program that focuses on how marital and family transitions are related to family caregiving processes according to the life course. And it has included studies of divorced and remarried mothers of children with cystic fibrosis and studies of parental and filial responsibilities to dependent kin when families have experienced marital transitions. So this is according to the website of the Sinclair School of Nursing University of Missouri and also encyclopedia.com. And in this picture, it was taken for his scholarship. He said, "We have studied divorce, remarriage, and step-family relationships for 40 years. And this is for his family scholarship. So lastly is Mark Fine. Mark Fine is a very private person, so there's not much on him as much, but he has done a lot when it comes to step-family relationships. So he's a professor and chair in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies at the University of North Carolina, as well as Francesca. He's an editor of the Journal of Family Theory and Review, one of the National Council on Family Relations, 3 leading research journals on families. His research interests lie in the areas of family transitions, such as divorce and remarriage, early intervention program evaluation, social cognition, and relationship stability. He also co-authored, along with John Harvey, Children of Divorce, Stories of Hope and Loss in 2004 by Earlbaum Publications. He co-edited with John Harvey the Handbook of Divorce and Relationship Dissolution in 2005 by Earlbaum Publishing as well. In 2009, he co-authored with David Demo Beyond the Average Divorce, published by Sage Publishing. He is a licensed psychologist and maintains a small clinical practice. His work includes the adjustment of adolescents in stepfather and stepmother families, cognitive correlates of adjustment for mothers and stepfathers and stepfather families, the divorce degree, communication, and the structuration of co-parenting relationships in stepfamilies. He also did an examination and evaluation of recent changes in divorce laws in 5 Western countries, the critical role of the critical role of values, perceived self-competence, step-family myths, and step-parent role ambiguity in adolescence from stepfather and stepmother families. And he's done a lot more. And this is all according to the UNC website at Greensboro. So now I'm going to apply it from a systems perspective using Brauchenbrenner's bioecological model. So from an individual level, step parents may find it hard to balance out between parenting and non-parenting because of the fact that stepchildren want to be both integrated, but also distanced from their step parents. But also on the child's perspective, they can struggle between loyalty to their biological parent, but also liking their step parent. On a microsystemic level, step families need to learn to communicate and interact with each other in order to be functional. On a mesosystemic level, step families integrate 2 different systems into one, which can be hard to adjust to. And co-parenting means respecting a non-residential partner in order for the child to feel safe. And on a macrosystemic level, step families are becoming more common, and shows such as Modern Family and Drake and Josh have helped normalize step families and blended families. So with the blending of families comes the blending of cultures, especially if there's multicultural step families. So according to the family education website, trying to understand and learn about the difference between your own culture and your step family's culture leads to an increased respect and improve cross-cultural communication. There are many different ways to learn about culture, including reading and researching the culture that your step family's from, asking questions, and even trying to learn your step family's language. So now self-awareness is essential for good cross-cultural communications. So we're going to do an exercise to help understand our own biases and perceptions. So here we're going to look at different behaviors that if we're in a step family or step family members may have, or we're in a family where we know somebody who's from another culture, or even if they're not in your family, just somebody who you could think of. And we're going to see what our perceptions are based on that behavior. So when someone speaks very softly, what might you assume? So for me, I might assume that they're too shy to talk to somebody or that they're just not in the mood to talk. What if somebody speaks very loudly? What might you assume? You guys can write it in the chat.
I think it depends, like if they're talking over people, coming from a big family and maybe being worried that what you're saying isn't going to get in time before someone else talks over you. So maybe that's why someone speaks softly, or when they speak loudly, they're like steamrolling over someone else. That's one thing that comes to like my assumption.
Thank you. What might you assume if somebody is always late? I know that this is an issue, at least for the culture that I'm from. I know that we're known for being late. So what might you think if you have a birthday party and somebody doesn't show up on time?
I think it could be perceived as being like disrespectful, or that they just don't care. It could be perceived as that, but they might just be that way, and like they're someone who always shows up late to stuff, or that they got caught up with something else and there could be something else going on with it. But initially it could be taken as just disrespectful or not caring about being there on time.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Colette. What if somebody stands very close to you? I know sometimes I don't like people standing very close to me, but I've had those situations where I've had to kind of back away, but they probably are used to being close. What if somebody stands too far away from you?
Just that they might not like some people are really sensitive to touch in general or being close to people, and it's not the norm for them, and that like physical affection and stuff like that isn't their love language necessarily, so that they get uncomfortable. So when they're uncomfortable, they put that physical space between them instead of wanting that like physical touch between the two people.
Yeah, they might need more distance than others. I know I would get scared. What if I smell bad? So what if somebody never hugs you or kisses you? What if you're dating somebody and they don't really hug or kiss you? I know you mentioned the love language, Colette. I think that's something that would come to my mind.
I think from like a family perspective, like for my family, we always like kiss on the cheek and hug each other, like to greet each other. And so that's, if we don't do it, it's kind of weird, I guess, but it's just something we're used to doing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, just talking about that, on my previous marriage, my ex wasn't really into hugging and kissing. I came from a family that we hug and kiss like a million times a day. And for him, it was just too much. To a point, he will literally just tell me, can you just, I need some space. Like it was too much. And then when I visited his family, he's an Apache, Native American. And I can understand why he was like that, because his mom, they don't hug, they don't kiss, they will just say hi from like far away. So it can be just the way they were raised in their culture as well.
Yeah, so you have that personal experience, Mariam. So these are good examples. So what if somebody never laughs at your jokes? What might you assume?
I'd assume that I just wasn't funny.
I would say it did happen to me when I moved to America. A lot of people won't laugh at my jokes because we had different cultures. And at first it was kind of like, why they're not laughing? And then I've noticed, after I watched a lot of comedy shows, I've noticed as like, okay, they're completely different. Like, for example, back home, if a guy is like married another wife, for example, without letting his first wife knowing, it's funny. But in America, it's not. It's a bad thing. People don't laugh at that. So at the beginning, it was kind of like hard to like understand why. But then I had to kind of like just get myself used to watching a lot of comedy shows to better understand the culture.
Wow. Yeah, so you have a different sense of humor, I guess you could say, from back home.
Yeah, things that we laugh at is completely different in here. So
Okay, what if somebody doesn't ask any questions? I think that's something that happens in classrooms a lot. So what would you feel if somebody never asked you any questions? I think I would feel like they're too scared to ask questions.
Too scared or maybe like not interested in you. Like thinking about like on a date, if you never have that interaction, you're like, oh, you don't care what I have to say. She's like not engaged.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that, like on a date. What if someone giggles too often?
It could be a nervous habit too, like a defense mechanism of, I don't know, like sometimes when I'm in pain, I start laughing. So I know this really hurts, but it's just happens.
Yeah, people giggle for different reasons, I guess. So what if somebody doesn't make direct eye contact with you? I know that happened to me before. I had a friend who didn't make eye contact, and I just never knew if she was paying attention. But then I learned that not everybody requires as much eye contact as I do.
I do make a lot of eye contact, and I've heard from a friend that it was too much for her. She said, Miriam, you need to stop doing that because it gets me intimidated and I don't really like it. It's just too much.
Wow, she was honest with you. That's good.
Yep.
What if somebody has a soft handshake? I know I watched an episode of King of the Hill where he shook the president's hand, and that completely changed the way he viewed the president because it was a soft handshake. So do you guys have an opinion on soft handshakes?
I think for me,
Yeah.
my dad has always told like my brothers, like you shake people's hands like firmly, like as a sign of respect.
Wow. Okay.
When a guy shakes my hand like really softly, I don't like it. Like I'd rather I want everyone to give me a firm handshake, like, and I give everyone a firm handshake. So I'm kind of like, when someone gives me a soft handshake.
So we're on to firm handshakes here. Okay, so now we were able to observe like our own reactions to different behaviors that people have. And not all cultures are the same with any of these. So biologically, yes, we have the potential of having similarities as other cultures. But in terms of how we act and how we react, that can be completely different. So this can make it difficult if your step family has different cultures. So some cultural differences can be as basic as how often you brush your teeth. And also some cultures may be okay with you blowing your nose at the table, while some others may not be okay with that. So it is also important to be tolerant of behavior that might change meaning from culture to culture. So an example that this website uses, family education, it said if an African-American child looks at you and says you're bad, that might not necessarily mean you're naughty. And if an Asian American child looks at you, but he doesn't want to make eye contact with you, it's actually his way of showing you respect. So another important thing to remember if you have a step family of another culture is that it's okay to laugh. So when there's miscommunications, it's funny and it's okay to just make light of the situation and not take it too seriously. And yeah, it's gonna happen when you're learning new customs. You can also teach your step family about your own culture. And because as you build your home identity, your family identity, your customs and background may be incorporated into your stepkids' lives. So you could do this by acknowledging and celebrating your own background. So this could also mean your own ancestors, what your values and your customs are, and things you would like to keep in your family from your own background. You could also link your stepkids with the world community. So an example that the website uses is saying, I'm going to give you red beads on the day of your wedding because that's Nepali culture. I think I said that right, Nepali culture, where in my culture, we wear wedding bands. You know, just like, even though it's not a culture that you and your step family have, just like having fun and including different cultures in your family. You could teach them the lingo. I know every culture has lingo no matter what. So just showing them what you say, cook for them. So let's say you eat pho in your culture, you could take your child to a restaurant that serves it. And at first, the stepchild may not like it, especially if it's their first time eating it. Let's say in the example of pho. But after a while, they might actually start to like it and they might start asking for it. You could also play them your music from your culture. I know my mom, she was from a different culture than I am right now. And she used to play me her music and I loved listening to it. You could also share your own cultural stories. So like if there's myths or legends, let's say like in Hispanic culture, La Llorona, you could just tell them your own stories from your background. So it's also important to remember that if there are dietary restrictions, whether for religious or moral reasons, it's important to respect that on both ends. So if you have a stepchild who's vegetarian, you have to respect that and, give them vegetarian food. But on the other end, they have to respect you if you want to eat meat and not say like, oh, you're killing animals and stuff like that. Respect has to go both ways. And it's also essential for other people's religious choices to be respected. But culture is not just religion and stuff like that. It could also include socioeconomic differences. So this does not just mean money. So it could include different values around how you talk about money, how you spend money, your attitude towards credit, your breeding and manners, your family's emphasis on education, and so on. And then it also includes holidays. So especially if there's a step parent, let's say there's only one step parent with no children, she didn't bring any children in the family, but the rest of the family has one holiday that they love to celebrate. Let's say it's Christmas, but the one step parent likes Hanukkah. She might feel left out in the cold. So it's important that when you're planning family holidays, you include everybody. So if you're gonna celebrate Christmas, make the effort to also celebrate Hanukkah. Or that's just an example of many different scenarios that could happen. So now I'm gonna play a real world example. And I hope it plays. There we go.
Gabrielle, you and Jada Pinkett
Can you hear it?
Smith both married into relationships where their partners were already fathers. Do you think it's important to have a relationship with the child's mother?
Absolutely. For
Yes.
sure, for sure.
I don't think you should be BFFs and force it. You should absolutely be cordial. I think you should make sure you stand your ground. You don't come in and all of a sudden now try to unteach all the things that that they've learned as children from their mother. But you absolutely should be cordial for the kids' sake. For
I've been in
the
this
relationship.
situation. I've been in this situation. my thing is this, there has to be mutual respect.
Right. Yeah.
Like ultimately, you want to be able to have a great relationship, but I also feel that the man has to set the tone for that.
Absolutely. We're women.
I
We're women
feel he
first.
does.
Yeah, we have to be respectful of that. But I do
think the man should set
I
the
think
tone.
I feel that the man sets the tone for the mutual respect piece. You don't think so? Why not? I'm interested. Let me hear
The
this.
man don't
has to
set
calm it
no
down,
damn
see?
tone. You women are in charge of this whole thing. I don't know why y'all sitting up here trying to give us some power now. We don't never get none at the house. Oh, no.
You are the common ground as the denominator.
You're the
Absolutely.
common
And
denominator.
here's the thing: if you're the woman in the situation that's the newcomer, you are feeling out and learning the dynamic between two parents.
Yes.
So you're not the child's mother. So there is a little bit of apprehension from that, or at least there should be, from that woman to kind of take her cues from the father of the child and take
But
some of
Miss
those cues
Vanessa,
from that.
Who do you think uses the child as a pawn more often? Is it the women or the men?
I'm gonna honestly, sadly, I'm gonna say the women.
Yeah, women.
And the reason why, we have to acknowledge this. When two people have a child, the person whose life, for the most part, physical life, emotional, mental life, is affected the most is the woman.
Yes.
The man's life keeps going. The men can get up and do whatever they want to do. They can participate. They can decide to dip. They have the option. Women don't get to do that. I mean, that's a soul tie. When you have a child with someone, that is the most strong bond you can have with another person. So,
And that's why I feel like because of that soul tie, you can't say that it's always women who use them as a pawn.
Not always.
Because that's a really tough thing to say to someone, and as a mother.
But for the
But I
sake
don't
of a
think everyone
relationship,
does.
sometimes, and this is where the importance of the father's relationship comes into play. If there is a stepmother, he has to establish what the relationships are
And
with
make it very
and make it very clear. This is the woman that I'm going to be with, and this is the woman that has my child, and there's a mutual level of
I
respect.
do agree with you in that a man has to try to mediate this situation best he can.
Yes.
But it has to be three people, like you were saying, that are just being very adult about it. And it only takes one of them to not want to be an adult
correct.
to ruin it for everybody.
Right.
Because it's got to be three people working to make this work and put the children first.
Yes.
It's hard to find that.
You have to be able to take ego out of the picture and out of the equation.
Right. Yeah.
You have to put the child's interest, the child's needs first, and not make it about you. It's not about you.
Yeah. Now, listen. All right, let me muddy the water up a little bit.
What's the if?
If you, the new woman,
Mm-hmm.
are the reason that they no longer,
No.
then I got that right there. If you are the,
It takes two.
Let me just say
It's
this.
never a sole blame on one person. It takes two to tango.
Yes.
So don't.
And
yeah, that's great. Yeah, all technically that's great. That ain't how it work in real life, though. If this woman thinks that one of you are the cause of him leaving,
She's thinking,
But
but
all I
what's
have-
the reality?
right. But the reality
I got
is
that.
but her reality is her reality.
Her
So
reality is
regardless of
she's
what
taking
the
care of that
reality
child, and
is,
her the man that she wants to be with got a new woman. But that's also why
you know
I
what the
say.
other problem is? I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Is men muddying the waters and
That's
not cutting the
exactly
relationship
what I was about
off.
to say.
The problem comes into place when
Boundaries.
you think that the
Making it clear.
relationship had been over, but
Boundaries.
they've been kind of playing around a little bit in the meantime.
Right. You've been one foot in, one foot out. You
come
allowing her
in,
to think something that's not the case.
so you come in thinking, oh, it's been over.
well, we gotta go. And everybody gonna take a drink right now. If you like that video, there's more where that came from.
Okay, so I really like that example just because doing this research, I was seeing the numbers and the facts, but I feel like watching Steve Harvey ask those questions and watching just like the actual reality and emotions behind step parenting, I think that added more, it made it more real, I guess, after doing this research. So they did mention Jada Pinkett Smith marrying Will Smith at, Seaside Show. Okay, so marrying Will Smith, and because of that, she became the stepmom to his son, Trey Smith. So I wanted to finish this off by quoting some of the things that she has said about being a stepmother. So When she was asked about why it is important for her to make things right with Will's son, Trey, she discussed the scars that her parents' divorce left on her. She said, I wanted to do anything in my power to make sure Trey didn't go through what I went through. I had to learn to get out of my own ego and remember it wasn't about me. So she said that to today's modern family. She also stated, blended families are never easy. We choose them. When I married Will, I knew Trey was part of the package, period. If I didn't want that, I needed to marry someone else. Then I learned if I am going to love Trey, I had to learn to love the most important person in the world to him, his mother. And the two of us may not have always liked each other, but we learned to love each other. These are the situations that separate women from girls. And she said that to Huffington Post / Black Voices. She also explained that it wasn't just about becoming a step parent that took adjustment on her part. It was also having to understand that Will was going to have a relationship with Trey's mom because they share a child. And she said she had to support him in doing what was right, even though it wasn't easy. She said, greatness doesn't come from ease. You want to do great things and you want it to be easy. They don't go hand in hand, but the husband makes the tough part worth it. But the fact that we enjoy holidays together with Trey's mom and her new husband makes the tough part worth it. Trey knows we all get along and that creates stability for him. She also has been quoted saying that she has actively included Trey's mom in their family unit in order to keep Trey from feeling torn between them. She said, I refuse to have Trey feel like a stepchild. He is not from my body, but he is a huge part of my spirit and soul. I wanted him to feel like he was a part of this circle. In order to do that, I had to make his mother a part of this circle because your mother is your pulse to the world. Your mother is everything. How can I truly appreciate and love Trey without embracing his mother? She said that to Atlanta Black Star. And additionally, she never wanted to treat him like a stepchild and doesn't like using the term. Instead, she calls him her bonus son. So this is their family, and Trey is the one with the hat, with the Santa hat. So to conclude, we were able to identify how having stepchildren, we were identify how having stepchildren affects marital satisfaction in step families. We were able to recognize how communication helps the step-parent and stepchild relationship, to explore the different dynamics of step-parent and stepchild relationships, identify current leaders in the research of step families, apply step-parent and stepchild relationships from a systems perspective, examine multicultural considerations in step-parent and stepchild relationships. We were able to reflect on our own biases in order to improve self-awareness for good cross-cultural communication and examine step-parent and stepchild relationships in real-world examples. And these are my references. Do you guys have any questions?
Awesome, thank you.